This and more of today's top headlines. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celestia Sherman. We'll also talk with Paul Cobler, the economy and industry reporter for the Texas Tribune, who will discuss tax breaks given on data centers.
Plus, we'll also learn about the Texas Historic Tree Coalition, an all-volunteer nonprofit group dedicated to bringing the stories of significant Texas trees to the public.
And as always, we want to hear from you. Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us live on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, by Metro, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The U.S. military is blocking ships from entering or exiting Iranian ports, absent a peace agreement. The blockade was due to take effect 2 hours ago. U.S. Central Command says the action will not, quote, impede freedom of navigation for vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz to and from non-Iranian ports. All of this is happening on the heels of historic peace talks between the U.S. and Iran over the weekend that produced no agreement toward ending the conflict. Robert Malley was a lead negotiator for the U.S. in the 2015 nuclear deal with Iran and spoke to NPR about the latest talks.
Listening to what President Trump has said and what some of the background briefings have indicated, it sounds like the U.S. went in and said, here are red lines. And the red lines were things that we should have known, that Iran would not have accepted it. They didn't accept them before the war. They're not going to accept them now, having to do with no enrichment, dismantling of all the enrichment facilities, among a long list.
Malley on NPR's Morning Edition. The landslide defeat of Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban gives Hungary a chance to improve its relationship with the European Union. Relations suffered under Orban's anti-EU, pro-Russian stance. From Brussels, Terry Schultz reports on expectations now from the bloc for a new start.
The man likely to be Hungary's next prime minister, Peter Magyar, has pledged to improve ties with the European Union after years in which outgoing leader Viktor Orban vetoed aid to Ukraine and forced the bloc to soften penalties on Moscow for its full-scale invasion. Zsuzsanna Weg of the German Marshall Fund think tank says reversing this should be one of Magyar's top priorities.
The Hungarian government under Orban has not been using the veto to protect Hungarian interests. It was using the veto to protect Russian interests. So that very clearly will need to stop.
Because Magyar's TISA party won more than 2/3 of parliamentary seats in Sunday's vote, he will have the political weight to push through real change. For NPR News, I'm Terry Schultz in Brussels.
Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell is suspending his campaign for California governor. A former staff member says a lawmaker sexually assaulted her. At least 3 other women accuse Swalwell of sexual misconduct. Scott Schaefer of member station KQED has more.
Within hours of those reports, nearly all of his major endorsers abandoned him. On X, Swalwell apologized for mistakes in judgment but denies the allegations. He's now facing calls from fellow Democrats in California to resign his House seat. Meanwhile, at their statewide convention over the weekend, Republicans failed to endorse any candidate. Despite winning support from President Trump, Fox News host Steve Hilton finished behind Sheriff Chad Bianco. Both fell short of the 60% needed for an endorsement. It all leaves the campaign with no clear leaders less than 2 months before the primary. For NPR News, I'm Scott Schaefer in San Francisco.
It's NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Tom Perumian. A co-worker of the man found dead in a home in Spring under remodeling is now under arrest. Josu Chirino is charged in the death of Juan Salinas. Chirino was taken into custody after allegedly taking Salinas' truck. Police say he was charged after being questioned following his arrest. Catalytic converter thefts are on the rise again in Houston. Thieves have been targeting large vehicles to steal the devices because of the precious metal inside. HPD Sergeant Tracy Hicks says car owners can protect their vehicles by parking in garages and other well-lit areas.
The other thing is getting a better alarm. They make alarms now that actually have vibration sensors. It's a bump sensor.
Hicks told Hello Houston that tough laws passed by the state legislature in 2023 helped reduce overall thefts, but they've been increasing over the past year. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton says he will absolutely stop the city of Houston from implementing a prohibition on police officers detaining people or prolonging traffic stops due to civil immigration warrants. State law calls for the removal of elected officials from office when they curtail collaboration with ICE. Seth Chandler, a law professor at the University of Houston Law Center, says the stakes are high.
You now appear to have a definitive decision from the Houston City Council, and you have a statement, at least, by the Attorney General that he doesn't find Houston's actions to be permissible under the law. And so I suspect we're going to see a real fight emerge.
Paxton has not laid out specific steps, and his office did not respond for a comment. Taking a look at weather. It's going to be mostly cloudy today with a chance of afternoon showers, a high of 82. Right now, cloudy, 77 degrees on the UH campus. For more news and information, go to our webpage, houstonpublicmedia.org. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with Snapshot, a personalized program that bases rates on safe driving habits, at Progressive.com. Not available in California or from all agents. This is NPR.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now your hosts for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous and Celeste Diaz-Sherman.
Yay, today we don't make a liar out of Jim. Celeste and Ernie are both in the house.
Yes, it is wonderful to be back here on Hello Houston. This truly is one of my favorite places in all the earth.
Well, you had 2 days off last week.
I did. I had 2 days off last week. One of the things, our mission here, obviously at Houston Public Media, is always to educate and inform and also be a part of the community. Mm-hmm. And there's this great organization. We had them on the show, Hello Houston, called Girls on the Run in Greater Houston, GOTR. And my daughter has been running with Girls on the Run since she was in second grade.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I have gotten to not just only be part of the organization outside of emceeing their gala, but really understanding of what it means. So the mission feels very personal to me. And I got to MC their sneaker soiree, and it was a beautiful event.
I've seen some pictures from it. They did it nice.
They did an excellent
job.
job.
And you looked fabulous,
Thank you. Thank you. It was an excellent event, raising, the goal was to raise about $250,000. I think we got close to that goal. But if you ever are wanting to support girl empowerment and young girls, you can check out Girls on the Run.
Well, and also if you want to support Houston Public Media, you are welcome to do it. We are in a drive, and you'll be hearing more about that coming up in just a little bit. But right now, if you're moved by what we talk about or the information you learn, give a call, 888-909-0887, and you can make your gift, your pledge of support there, or just online, houstonpublicmedia.org/donate. I've been waiting to tell you this story.
Okay, but I do want to wish you happy Easter.
Well, it's an Easter story.
Yes.
So I was going to do a big Easter dinner. I cut it way down, just a couple people, just like the closies. And I'm cooking, and my phone rings, and I look at the phone. I'm bad at answering my phone to begin with, and there's an international number there, 444 something, 41 something, whatever. And I'm like, all right, I'll answer it. And I answer it. I'm like, hello, and I hear Ernie. It was international recording artist Nana Muscuri, #1 selling female recording artist of all time, a big treasure for Europe. She's kind of like Europe's Barbara Streisand. Called me to wish me happy Easter.
That is fantastic.
That was so weird.
I love that.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. I also, whenever I'm out and about in the community, I still chime in. I want to hear what's happening, so I tune into Hello Houston. And I saw that Fotis had, when he sat in with you on Thursday, had family from Greece.
Yes, that were watching us too. So if you're still listening and watching on YouTube, family from Greece, you know who Nana Muscuri is. And you're thinking, oh my God, Or if you're from America, you're saying, what is Ernie talking about? So
yes.
Depending on where you're from. But anyway, it was just so bizarre. And
that's awesome.
You wouldn't believe it from what we do every day. But I get so nervous in moments like that. And then I'm listening to myself talk, and I'm talking like a 3-year-old to her. Hi, what are you doing? Thank you for calling. I'm like, Ernie, grow up.
Oh my gosh, Ernie, never grow up. But that is that's the beauty of being on YouTube, is that people can tune in from everywhere.
Yeah, around the world. We are global, and if you're not watching us right now on YouTube, you're missing half the show because you don't get to see us.
Yes.
And also, you can join a wonderful group of folks who join us every day. They are our YouTubers. There's a whole other show going on there in their comments, and we're always thrilled to see them. Earl Grey T-Cat says, I saw the art car parade. So nice of them to do it on my birthday. Well, happy birthday to you.
Birthday.
Jim Kovacic, myself, Matt Harab, all three of us got to go out there and MC the parade around the rain.
I was going to say, so did y'all get rained out?
No, the parade went. They calculate about 350,000 people come out to see the art car parade. I would say it was probably a little smaller this year with the rain. Yeah. It rained right before the parade. And always that is like everyone's like, But then it was pretty clear during it. But it was cool. Thank you all for coming out and supporting the parade. It's a great way to celebrate art in our community. Coming up on today's show, we're going to be celebrating a lot of things that go on in our community. How about trees? The long, storied history of some of our trees. We're going to learn about that. There's also a lot more going on in the news. We talked a lot about data centers the other day. Well, we're going to find out what's the true cost of that, especially when they get tax breaks. But as always, we start off with the news. Celeste, take us away.
A committee of the Texas House of Representatives voted late Friday afternoon to impose financial penalties totaling nearly $423,000 on Democratic House members who broke quorum last August to try to prevent the Republican-led legislature from passing a controversial mid-decade congressional redistricting plan. The GOP-led Committee on House Administration imposed $303,000 in fines on the 50-plus Democratic members for being absent without leave during the first and second special sessions of the 89th legislature. The committee then added an additional $120,000 penalty to reimburse the Texas Department of Public Safety for expenses when trying to get those members to return to the chamber. Under House rules, the members being penalized may not use political fundraising in order to pay the fines or reimbursement expenses. In this case, more than $8,000 per member will be they'll have to pay that per member. What are your thoughts on this decision? Is it fair to the Democratic elected officials who broke quorum? Now is the time to join us on Hello Houston. You can call or text 713-440-8870.
I would say, because that's what I'm going to do, is that I don't know enough about what the bylaws actually say for the state legislature. If you break quorum, and I remember from our conversations with Democratic House members who talked to us about this while it was going on, that is a tool that is built in for them to use. You break quorum, it stops a vote from happening. So how you can fine someone for doing something that is permissible, or is it each administration, each period of membership gets to decide what they see as what's permissible or not? I will say $8,000. All right, pay your fine, if that's what's decided on. But keep it across the board. Republicans leave them. They should be fined too if that happens when it's their turn.
Right. The question then becomes, is this about enforcing the rules? Or are Republicans just trying to essentially punish the minority party for using one of its only tools? I mean, when we talk about, them being able to leave, that is a part of political protest. They are able to say, this is our right. We can protest as elected officials ourselves and leave. The question again becomes, I think a lot of critics would say, yes, but you can also look at it as when they broke quorum, they stopped the process of the legislation happening. They stopped the moving of their work going forward. Again,
you were going to say
713-440-8870. So where do you land? Is this about accountability or is it political retaliation? Give us a call or send us a text.
I think that protest, if the price to pay for democracy is $8,000 a member, I say, oh, well, so be it. Now, remember, our state legislature do not get paid like you hear in some of these different positions. They're not hundreds of thousands of dollars. They get paid very little. And it is only a short term within a 2-year term that they actually report to Austin to work. So an $8,000 fine on what they make from what they do is a hefty fine. But I'm assuming most of these folks can handle that fine. Mm-hmm. But is it right to impose it? And I think if it is a tool you can use that's in place to change the rules and then say after the fact, well, now there's a fine on it, I think that should be established beforehand. Maybe the better practice, but we know what this is really about. But I would say maybe the better practice is you say, if in the future this happens, because it's almost like it should be grandfathered in. There was not a fine before. You can't put a fine in now.
Right. I do think that, to me, I'm not sure how I feel about the original financial penalties, the one that was, the original one, about the $303,000, and that was fines for them for being absent. Where I do think that, yes, maybe we need to look at this from a financial standpoint and our elected officials need to pay for this, is the assessment of the reimbursement to the Texas Department of Public Safety.
Yeah.
To me, I'm like, if you took time out of our, law enforcement or the Department of Public Safety, and there was some, person who had to then move to try to help this from away from their normal working hour job, what they do, then yeah, I think that there should be a penalty there.
I would come in and say, Department of Public Safety, it's their job to do this work, to keep things safe. That's part of what they're supposed to do. I don't think they needed to go and rally or round up our elected officials. I don't believe that's what brought them back either. It was the negotiations that did it. So whoever assigned them to go, it was pretty much a foolish move, but we know why it was done. It was political theater on both sides. Right. Democrats knew they were going out and that they were making a statement. Republicans are making a statement now, but they're in control of the House and the Senate, so they get to put a fine on it. So there you go. Let us know what you think. We were talking of politics. We were talking the other day about the new ordinance that's being discussed at City Council about ICE and police not staying not holding someone for 30 minutes waiting for an ICE officer to come. On Wednesday, Abby Kanan is going to be with us, and she's one of our City Council members who led that charge. So.
And we have been getting quite a few text and YouTube comments. We received a text that says, the fine is ridiculous. It is absolutely a penalty. So YouTube, Noah Espinosa says, when the shoe's on the other foot, I expect the exact same standard to be upheld without protest.
Right. I mean, once you set this policy, okay, if you break quorum, you're going to be fined for it. All right. That goes for everybody. And you know what? Things will shift in time. And so you got to remember, I just have a little trouble with you do a behavior and then they put a penalty on it. We should know what the penalty is before the behavior happens, because you're moving the goalpost. Okay, you could say, well, we didn't like the way that played out this time. So now in the future, if you break quorum, you have to pay this and this and this. Now we know what we're playing against. I just don't think you can be retroactive on those things.
Okay.
All right, that's my take on that one.
713-440-8870. Again, let us know. Is this about accountability or is it political retaliation?
I did just mention that Abby Kamen is coming in on Wednesday, and that takes me to my news story, which is Houston's new immigration policy, which is drawing a sharp response from the state. City Council voted 12-5 this week to limit when police can detain people over civil immigration warrants, removing a requirement that officers wait up to 30 minutes for an ICE agent to arrive, while officers are still required, though, to contact ICE about all warrants. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton says he will, quote, absolutely stop, end quote, the policy that he calls spitting in the face of that law. Argues it violates a 2017 state law requiring cooperation with federal immigration authorities. Now, city leaders say the measure simply clarifies existing practices. But the legal fight may be just the beginning as the state weighs in on the next move. As we mentioned, Abby Kamen will be here with us on Wednesday to talk about this particular thing. But what are your thoughts on Paxton's stance on City Council's new ordinance? Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
Not surprising. I mean, this is exactly what I would expect. I think that the Attorney General is using, obviously, he's taking a very strong enforcement position. Mm-hmm. We have seen this happen specifically when we look at state authority versus local control. Here in Harris County, this is something that has been going on for a very long time. I'm not surprised at all. I think that, if you look at the language that, the Attorney General is using, he's saying that this policy spits in the face of state law. I think that there has to be a balance here between, allowing your local elected officials to do what's best for their communities at a local level. And I think that Houston City Council leaders say that the ordinance clarifies existing practices and is not defying the law. So I think that they do think that they are doing the best, possible, putting policy forward that really does help their community.
When we spoke about this last time, I do believe that they talked about they had checked this with city lawyers to make sure that it was all legal and fine. I know that people will assume that a Democratic stronghold in the middle of a Republican state, you're going to have these kind of tensions. They're going to have policies that they want to uphold, and the state's going to have policies they want to uphold. But you can't overlook the fact that Attorney General Ken Paxton is in a major runoff between him and our current U.S. Senator. And so Cornyn and Paxton are at war with each other. So anything to get attention and make it look like things are going on, you go for it.
And again, 713-440-8870. Let's go to Joel from the Museum District, who actually has a comment about our first headline about the quorum break fine. Joel, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you, and I appreciate you letting me comment. I think we need to understand the context of why the Democrats walked out. This was not a trivial matter. President Trump had ordered Greg Abbott to basically gerrymandering at least five districts to try to retain the Congress. Okay, and what this did is took the power of the people away and put it in the hands of the legislatures. So this was not a trivial issue. Okay, it wasn't just business as usual. This was a grave assault on our democracy because it would prevent equal representation.
I would say I don't disagree with the tenor of what you're saying. I will say, though, the one part where I would disagree is it's not a trivial matter. I feel like it doesn't matter if there is a law, if there is a policy. It doesn't matter if it's trivial or important, because what's trivial to some people may be important to others. So from that point of view, yes, I believe it was redistricting. It was a serious matter for our state. I think that's more on the idea of when you decide to break quorum, whether you think it has value or not, whether it's trivial or not. I think if you're going to apply these fines, it doesn't matter why you walk out, then you apply them to all. But again, I don't think you can apply them after the fact. But thank you for calling.
Okay, and let's go to Barbara from Oak Forest. Barbara, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hi, good morning. I want to say, first of all, I believe everything the previous caller just said and more. And I think it's clearly just a matter of punishment and trying to control the dialogue. And I think when you take away the tools that people have to respond to situations, then pretty soon they have no tools left. And we just don't have a way to express, especially if you are a minority party or a party that doesn't have the deep pockets that the Republican Party has. So I think it's simply a punishment. I think it should be seen as that, and I think it's a very wrong thing to do for either party.
Yeah.
Thank you, Barbara, for calling into Hello Houston.
And we have, I just want to toss in one other comment we have. This was from the story about Ken Paxton going after and suing us for our ICE policy. Ken Paxton needs to worry about running the child support division properly before he tells somebody else how to do their job.
And coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk with Paul Cobler, Texas Tribune's economy and industry reporter, about tax breaks given to data centers. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
Thank you for listening to Hello Houston. Today we have an amazing opportunity for you right now. When you make your donation to keep this show strong, it's going to be tripled. Yes, this is thanks to Margaret Goldberg and Bernard Fields. Don't let this pass you by. Make your gift right now and get it tripled. If you've been waiting for a moment to donate during this drive, this is the moment to do it. $1 becomes $3 to us. It's still $1 to you, but it's 3 times as powerful when it comes into our pots. So do it right now. HoustonPublicMedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celestia Sherman. And right now matters because your gift today goes further. Through our partnership with Meals on Wheels, your gift of $20 not only turns into $60 a month, it also provides 20 meals for homebound seniors in our community. That means something. You're providing nourishing, hot food to people who can't leave their homes, and you're supporting reliable news. So give $20 a month now and get it tripled at HoustonPublicMedia.org or call us 888-909-0887.
You know, when you give, you're a leader in keeping the greater Houston area informed. You're helping make sure everyone in the greater Houston area has access to reliable news. You do that when you support this station. So right now, make your gift. And don't forget, your gift at this very moment will be tripled. How's that for an offer you can't refuse? Do it now at HoustonPublicMedia.org/donate or by calling 888-909-0887.
And you hear us correctly. Right now, your donation of $100 becomes $300. That's 3 times the support for trusted journalism, fact-based reporting that keeps you informed and connected to your community. But this chance won't last. Time is running out to make triple the difference for independent news. Get your donation tripled at HoustonPublicMedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
So what exactly does your gift do when you give to Houston Public Media?
What does it do?
It pays all the bills, all the expenses that we incur at this station, and there are a lot. It also, though, keeps public media alive and helps keep us all informed of what's going on in our neighborhoods. Yes, you're informed about your neighborhood. Your gift is power. Do it right now at HoustonPublicMedia.org/donate.
Tonight on Houston Public Media.
Meet Tio Choco. We just took his keys for the day and gave him a Ride Metro fare card. This is his story. Visit ridemetro.org/Choco to find out where is Choco.
Now, the show that brings you honest conversations about housing, healthcare, education, and the real issues shaping life in our city.
That's right. Hello Houston brings voices to the mic that need to be heard, but it doesn't happen on its own.
No, this station is entirely community funded, and that means you make Hello Houston possible.
Support the conversations that move Greater Houston forward. Make your gift at HoustonPublicMedia.org/donate.
Support comes from Metro. World Cup planning includes transit improvements intended to serve Houston after the final match. Metro provides bus, rail, and paratransit service and continues mobility enhancements across the region. More at ridemetro.org/Metro now.
Support comes from British International School of Houston, a learning environment designed to shape a generation of creative and resilient global citizens. More at bishouston.org.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Theater Under the Stars, presenting the national Broadway tour of Monty Python's Spamalot, opening Wednesday at the Hobby Center, with performances through April 26th. Tickets available at tuts.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manous and Celestia Sherman.
Texas will lose out on $3.2 billion in sales tax revenue over the next 2 years, thanks to an exemption for the state's booming data center industry. This, according to the Comptroller's office, and that figure is likely a vast underestimate given the explosion of new facilities being built, but already makes the tax break one of the state's costliest incentive programs and soon to be the most expensive of its kind in the nation. Lawmakers who will meet in January for the next legislative session say they are considering proposals to either limit the scope of the tax break or get rid of it altogether. To tell us more, we're joined by Paul Cobler, Texas Tribune's economy and industry reporter. Paul, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hey, Celeste. Hey, Henry. Thanks for having me, guys.
So, Paul, you mentioned $3.2 billion, and I'm curious, what exactly is being exempt here? Is this equipment, energy use? Is this construction materials? Where are we seeing the biggest loss coming from?
Yeah, so the way I've had it explained to me, and I think it's the easiest way to visualize it, is if you picked a data center up and sort of just dumped it, it would kind of be everything that falls out of it that has to do with the operation of the data center itself. So not necessarily like the office chairs that are in there, but we're talking servers, chips, and really the big one is electricity, is sales tax on electricity. And I think that's really where a lot of these numbers are coming from, just given the amount of electricity many of these new centers use.
Let me jump in right before we get too much into the weeds on all this, just to look at and understand what we're talking about financially. So we're saying it's $3.2 billion in sales tax, around there possibly. The number could be slightly different. Overall, how much do we generate in this state in sales tax? What percent? What are we looking at? What does this number realistically mean?
I mean, well, the comptroller's office just put a report out last week, so it's good to have this on the top of my head, that we generated $1 billion in sales tax revenue just in February. So, I mean, there is quite a bit of money that we are generating every year in sales tax revenue, but a lot of this money goes to the general fund and is accounted for other uses. So this is kind of like thinking additional revenue that we would have that could go to other programs on top of that. And when we're talking, $1 billion annually, that is a lot of things that can be funded with that money.
Yeah, that's very true.
Do we know approximately how much individual companies are going to actually be benefiting from this? Or, is it a handful of firms that are getting most of the tax breaks? How does that break down?
Well, so it's a little difficult to be able to give you exact numbers here, just because it's hard to know exactly how many data centers there are in the state of Texas. We don't have any requirement that there's like a database that the state keeps. Wow. So the kind of estimates that are out there as far as how many data centers are in existence or operating or being built, it's kind of fluctuates anywhere from between like 250 up to about 450 is what I've seen. But about 161 are under construction, according to some data firms. Now, the comptroller's office, in the database that we do have for data centers that are receiving the sales tax break, there are about 121 that are there. So I would say it's about 50% of all the ones that exist, but I can't give you like a hard, solid number on that.
Mm-hmm.
I would guess that the explanation, the rationalization for this, rationalizing it out, is that if we don't give them these breaks, they won't come to Texas. Is that the argument for why they're proposing these? Or is there something else at play here that benefits somebody by making sure they get these tax breaks?
Well, I can give you a little history lesson if you'd like.
Please do.
We have time.
This tax break was created back in 2013 in the legislative session then, would have gone into effect in 2014 as its first year. And at that point, data centers were an emerging industry. This was, following the dot-com boom. This is when these tech companies were really growing, and these were mostly used for like cloud storage infrastructure. They still are, but we didn't have the AI boom that we were thinking of that requires all of this computing power that we're talking about. And so there was a rush on states across the country to try to attract this emerging industry, sort of seeing the potential tax revenue that could come in from other sources like property taxes. And this was an incentive that was meant to draw them. And I talked to the author of that 2013 bill, Harvey Hildebrand, who is no longer in the legislature, but he told me on the phone, he was kind of laughing about this, saying it's probably his most successful bill he's ever done, just given the landscape now.
Right.
And if you talk to the data center industry, these are some of the largest tech companies in the world. They say that this is a necessary tax break, that they need this just given the investment that they're putting into these data centers. The construction of these things are $1 billion plus, these new largest ones that are being built. So they say, we need this kind of this tax break to be able to make this investment, to be able to put all of this equipment into these offices. And without it, especially given, like you talked about, this kind of conversation starting about potentially reworking this tax break or repealing it, which we can get to in a minute. They say that if that happens, that would be an end of the investment in the state, or at least it would send a very hostile message to the industry. There are also other states that are considering reworking their own tax break. Like in Virginia, they said the same thing there, that if Virginia takes that action, that would be an end to the investment happening there. But I think it's that's debatable based on the tax experts I've spoken to.
Other states, though, what is the state standard in other states when it comes to doing these tax breaks for things like this?
Yeah, so we are one of 37 states that have a tax break for data centers. 36 of them are sales tax breaks. I believe it's Washington has they don't have, or maybe it's Oregon, they don't have a sales tax, so they have sort of this like kind of quasi property tax break. But largely we are pretty much on par with everybody else as far as the exemptions. It's pretty similar too, but it's like I said, the landscape is changing very quickly. Like in Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, the governor there, he recently announced a 2-year sort of pause on their tax break while they can rework it. Virginia, they are entering a special session right now, and they're attempting to balance the budget and looking at the sales tax break. They forego about $1.6 billion in revenue annually in Virginia, and they're looking at potentially repealing this tax break to get back some of that revenue too. So it's a very shifting landscape at this point.
Let me just quickly ask, of the states that don't have these, do they have data centers being built there, or is the data industry just going to the states that don't have it?
The data centers are going anywhere and everywhere that they can build them, basically. The way I had this explained to me is sort of at this point in time. I mean, the states, we talk about trying to attract these things, but the states have sort of the maximum amount of leverage that they ever will have, because at this point, just like the pace of construction that is happening on data centers is not the pace that they need to be at yet. Like they are accelerating still in the construction of this, and it is happening all across the country.
We are speaking with Paul Cobler, the Texas Tribune's economy and industry reporter. If you'd like to join the conversation, you can call or text 713-440-8870. Let's go to Chris from Cyprus, who's on the line. Chris, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hi, good morning, guys. I guess it's a two-part question. Has anyone looked at the impact on the environment and the demand for water to kind of keep these operations going?
Paul, do you have a response?
Yeah, please. We don't know the answer.
Yes.
That is a big question right now. Certainly the electricity use has been well documented. That's a little bit more public. I mean, some of these data centers are operating on about a gigawatt of electricity, which is the equivalent to 700,000 homes. ERCOT is taking a lot of effort to kind of rework its interconnection queue, which is basically the line that companies have to join to basically say they would like to be plugged into the grid. And I mean, if you look at that queue, I mean, it's like 150 gigawatts of potential energy source that could go online, and a majority of that is data centers. Now, ERCOT says not all of those are going to necessarily come to fruition, which is why they're reworking this queue. But there are serious concerns about certainly the amount of electricity that might be coming online, and a lot of companies are working to create new natural gas power plants, solar farms. There's been a big build out of batteries, like larger batteries, basically for a power grid, to be able to help meet some of this demand. And ERCOT feels pretty confident at this point in time. Now, there's certainly been a lot of questions about what this is doing to ratepayers' electricity bills, which is something that we are looking into at the Tribune. So I would just say, keep reading our work. This is a story we're really on a lot. And same question with water. A lot of these companies, a lot of them do use a lot of water, but I would kind of think of this as like scales of data centers. There are good community data center operators that they are using more expensive equipment on the cooling side that allows them to recycle their water, that certainly decreases the amount of water use that they do have. But there are also ones using older systems that do use a ton of water. And there's been forecasts that have been released that I think they find the water use in the state of Texas could rise to about 165 billion gallons per day from data centers. And that is a very significant number. We're nowhere near that right now, but there are very wide ranging forecasts on where this could go. But I think a lot of it depends on kind of the market and the technology and sort of the incentives that these data centers have. I mean, if it's going to cost more money to use electricity to use water, there's going to be an incentive for them to find more efficient ways to do that versus the opposite.
Paul, when we look at accountability to the trade-offs, are local communities actually seeing any kind of economic benefit? Are we seeing jobs, infrastructure, or is most of the gain concentrated elsewhere?
Mm-hmm. Well, so for the sales tax break specifically that we're talking about, the state sales tax break, to be able to be eligible for it, these companies have to promise For the smaller data centers, at least 20 high-paying jobs, which are 120% of whatever the median pay is in that county. And then for the larger data centers, which these are basically just decided by square footage is the easiest way to explain it, it's 40 high-paying jobs. And then $500 million in capital investment in the project. And then the Data Center Coalition, which is a trade group of basically the largest tech companies in the world that are building a lot of these data centers, they commissioned a study that found that in 2024, data centers generated $3.2 billion also from local and state taxes, including local sales and property taxes. So there are other, methods that taxes can be collected from these centers. Now, what I also say is this is some reporting we're also doing is that a lot of these data centers are still able to enter into local economic development agreements. So they could get property tax abatements, they could get, grants for moving in. So there are other tax giveaways that are happening, but there is certainly a lot of revenue being received from these centers too.
Two questions coming off what you just said there. First of all, I'm just curious, is there something that makes a location more prime for one of these data centers? And does Texas have that landscape that they want, which makes us attractive regardless of tax breaks?
Yeah. So geographically, we are the center of the country, which is helpful for this kind of thing. We have a lot of fiber optic cables that run through the state. And, if data needs to get from one end of the country to the other, we're a good waypoint in the middle. We're also a growing state that has a growing population, so there is just more internet usage happening, which makes us appealing. And then we have a lot of land. It's a really, like I said, it's a really big state, and so we have a lot of cheap available land, and these are big boxes basically being built. So that is certainly attractive to these companies. We also, just given the way our grid is set up, I'm just sure a lot of your viewers know it's different than the East Coast or the West Coast. We have our own grid that's deregulated, and we have cheaper electricity costs because of that. And so it's easy. It's also a lower regulation environment, so it's easier for these plants to be set up and to be connected to the grid in kind of a more quickly than you would see in sort of higher regulation states.
And staying on that, in contracts and negotiations, all that, is it put in? Because I think to myself, I'm old enough to remember before we could fit everything into a cell phone, a computer room was a huge room with all these computers. Over time, technology will shrink this down massively. Is there provisions already about decommissioning these things? Because it could be in 10 years, they're all obsolete again, and they're massive structures.
Yeah. Well, I know on the sales tax break specifically that these do sunset after 10 or 15 years, depending on the amount of capital investment they make. But as far as the centers themselves, I mean, this is a concern I've heard from folks that are critical of the build out of the data center industry. Like when you think of the dot-com boom crash, there were a lot of these different fiber optic cable lines, different server rooms that were built in the early 2000s. And a lot of them were kind of just left to rot for a period of time. But they also ended up being the infrastructure that was there as the internet continued to grow, and a lot of those things have been used. So as far as sunsetting these facilities over time, that I couldn't tell you honestly. I won't try to answer that, but I would say that given the internet age we live in right now, that these are going to have, I think, use one way or the other. But it's a question of how big AI becomes and sort of if this continues to be a money-making venture for a lot of these tech companies. And that's I think a question that remains to be seen.
Lawmakers are going to be meeting in January for the next legislative session to consider these proposals. And do you think that there is a lot of momentum to fully eliminate the exemption, or do you think this is more tweaking around the edges? And I'm just kind of curious what that's going to do for, long-term Texas type tax base, if our tax situation, if it's shifting more of the burden onto residents and small businesses.
Yeah, so before I published this story, when I was just reporting it, I spoke to State Senator Joan Huffman, who is the chair of the Finance Committee. So this would be one of the primary committees that any change or repeal of this tax break would go through. And she told me that she is at a minimum interested in looking at this and reworking it, but that she would be open to repealing it. I've heard similar things from other legislators, especially since this story published. It's generated a lot of chatter online, and I've seen a lot of comments. I've heard from a lot of different legislators who are open to reworking this. I think they don't know exactly what they're going to do yet. So I would tell your listeners to look for July. The end of July, there's going to be a hearing on this very topic. These interim hearings are going on. There was another one last week, just sort of on data centers more broadly. But this is kind of like the fact-finding period for the legislature, that they receive these interim charges from the Speaker of the House and from the Lieutenant Governor, who's the head of the Senate. And they basically kind of start deciding what they want to do. They hold public hearings, they talk to stakeholders, they decide for themselves what is the right steps to take. So I think there's certainly some openness to this, but we will have a better idea once we can hear some more public comments from the legislators in this hearing in July. And then as we get closer and the bill, they're able to start filing bills, then we'll be able to kind of see better where the mood is. But I would certainly say that every legislator I've spoken to, these numbers are alarming to them, just given how big it is. And I think it's another thing we're kind of missing is not just how big it is, but how quickly it's risen. That from 2023, it was forecast to only be about 180 million. And by 2025, that number is over $1 billion. And then, like I had in my story, the next 2 years, it's expected to be a combined $3.2 billion. So it's not just that it's a large number, it's that it is ballooning very, very quickly. And I think that is what sort of is giving legislators pause and saying, this is not exactly how we intended for this to be set up.
Mm-hmm. Paul Cobler is the Texas Tribune's economy and industry reporter. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today on Hello Houston. We'll have to have you back to give us an update on this.
Yeah, great. Thank you both for having me.
Thank you.
And coming up, preserving our state's historical trees. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
You know how important trusted independent journalism is to our community. This is able to ensure that you have access to the information you need. And right now, you can triple. Yes, I said triple, Celeste. Triple your investment. And again, in my script, it says, that's right, tripled. I think we're trying to push this point home. Yes. We want to thank Kathy and Randy Lake for this matching fund. But the triple match is only available for a very short time. You only have about, looks like 14 minutes left to triple that donation. So right now, if you've been thinking about becoming a member or supporting this station in any way, shape, or form at any amount, do it right now. Make your gift go 3 times further at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Imagine not being able to leave your home and depending on someone to bring you a meal. Think about that. That's the reality for many seniors in Houston, and you can help them right now. When you give $120, 10 meals will be delivered, and you make sure someone eats today. That's how easy this is. HoustonPublicMedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
It's really fascinating. We had the opportunity to deliver meals with Meals on Wheels a while back. I've told this story before a number of times. It wasn't so much as just bringing the meals to these people. It was the true human interaction they got with someone that they may not have had all day long. So not only are you nourishing somebody's stomach, you are nourishing their soul when you give right now. Thank you for joining others across the region to make sure Houston Public Media is strong and protected during our first year without federal support. So it's going to take all of us to do this. So thanks for your generous monthly gifts. And Houston Public Media will have your long-term support with us as we get through these times. So make your monthly donation now. And as we've mentioned, you may not have picked up on this, it's going to be tripled. Yes. Do it right now before time runs out at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or by calling 888-909-0887.
When you give to Houston Public Media today, your generosity reaches even further. As we've been mentioning, select meals as your thank you gift, and Meals on Wheels will turn your support into hot, nourishing meals for homebound seniors. Now is a great time to make an impact on 2 organizations with your one gift. Make your gift right now. Go to HoustonPublicMedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
As I'm sure you knew, our station lost federal funds about a year ago, and we rely on this community for support now more than ever. So we're asking those of you who can to do more to help us secure a strong future for our station. A gift of $5,000 or more to support this station and also protect fact-based journalism and essential local programming. And it also welcomes you into our Affinity Council. Seems awfully high for an amount of money, but you know what? You get so much in return. Your leadership helps shape the future of Houston Public Media and public media in general in Houston. And Affinity Council gifts are also, ready for it, being tripled. Do it right now. Go to HoustonPublicMedia.org/donate or call us 888-909-0887.
I'm Robin Young. Many analysts include
Meet Gamola, songwriter, world-class violinist, and award-winning multi-genre artist. We just took his keys for the day and gave him a Ride Metro fare card. Visit ridemetro.org/Gamola to learn more about his ride.
next time, Here and Now.
Here and Now this afternoon at 1 o'clock on News 88.7.
You're listening to Hello Houston, where the voices, issues, and ideas that shape our city come together. From immigration to education, from local elections to cultural conversations, this show dives deep.
And it only happens because listeners like you choose to give. Right now, during our fall campaign, we're asking for your support.
If this show matters to you, take the next step and make your gift at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Support comes from Elmore, communicating with clarity and inspiration, collaborating with executive leadership to create expert internal and external communication strategy. Elmore, listen, clarify, communicate. More at elmorepr.com.
Support comes from Rice University. Founded in 1912, Rice is a private research university with programs in business, the sciences, and more. Students conduct research in fields from health to space exploration. More at rice.edu.
Support comes from Amazing Place, an area resource for navigating dementia and nurturing brain health. Its day program helps adults with mild to moderate dementia engage with others and rediscover a sense of purpose. Details at amazingplacehouston.org.
Support comes from Rothko Chapel, presenting art class for families with Vasily Kandinsky as part of Neighborhood Community Day, April 18th. The event includes an interactive art session exploring color and composition through abstract work. rothkochapel.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manous and Celeste Diaz-Sherman.
2 weeks ago, 4 NASA astronauts left Ellington Airport in Houston to embark on a historic mission, the likes of which had not been accomplished in decades. And on Saturday, they returned to Houston, now titans in the field of space exploration, icons in the public eye. Less than a day after splashing down off the coast of San Diego, Artemis II crew members Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Henson arrived in Houston. They were reunited with their families for the first time since flying around the moon and back. Joining us now is Houston Public Media reporter Michael Adkison. Welcome.
Hey, how are you guys?
You know, like I said the other day to you, I came into the whole space story as, yeah, it's space. I get it. I know. They're going. You made me so excited about this mission through your visits here and your reporting. Friday night, I couldn't do anything. I had to sit in front of my TV and watch the splashdown. You got me that excited.
It was
about it.
fascinating.
It was mesmerizing. Yeah.
Yes.
And I remember there was one time that I came in here and I forget what I had to explain. And you were like, you just explained that to me like I'm 3 or something.
Well, I
so
needed it.
You were my audience. You were my target audience to make interested. No, it was fascinating. And I think that it was one of the things that NASA officials had said leading up to the splashdown was, you know, you can alleviate yourself of the rational fears, but you can't alleviate the irrational fears. And, you know, everyone is watching what happens, just like holding their breath of like the 6 minutes of silence. Are we going to hear them at the other end? And I will say just that moment where you did hear them talk, it's like chills. Like it was just so, yeah.
You know, Michael, we were all watching this in our living rooms, on our cell phones. You got to be in many ways right front and center. You were in a lot of the press briefings. You got to, you know, talk to the guys that were running the mission. Tell us about that and what that felt like, and what were some of the conversations that were being had and questions being asked.
Yeah, like I said, it was like those irrational fears couldn't go away for these flight directors who are here at the Johnson Space Center working 24/7 essentially on this mission. And one of the first question that I asked when all this wrapped up was, you know, we talked to the astronauts a lot and asked them if they feel the weight of history on their shoulders, that, you know, there's something like less than 30 people who have, or fewer than 30 people who have been to the moon, and 4 more just got added to that list. Wow. I know, such an elite group. And I remember, you know, we've asked them, do they feel that? Do they feel that weight? And I don't know that had ever been asked to the flight directors before. And so in the press briefing on Friday night after the splashdown, I asked Judd Freeling, who was in charge of the re-entry, I asked him, I'm like, do you feel the weight of this moment? And I don't know if he was expecting that question or what, but he kind of just like sat there and was like, and it looked like he was processing it in real time. And he kind of just said like, when we were watching the Earth just get bigger and bigger on that live stream, and all of a sudden it's there. And then he kind of just pauses and he's like, I mean, I have a really cool job. Like it's just so great. And it's here in Houston that all that is happening.
You've mentioned the 6 minutes of the blackout. We've had comments about it also on the screen. Explain why, for a period of time, all of a sudden we have no, and it's not just us that doesn't have communication. Nobody has communication.
Nobody has communication. I've said this before on Hello Houston, is I think the best way that people can picture space and the conversations we have is from movies. And so, picture Apollo 13, and as they're re-entering the Earth's atmosphere and everyone's in mission control kind of just holding their breath. So this happens basically every time they do re-entry. And it's because as you're re-entering the Earth's atmosphere, which is a process easier said than done, you are moving at thousands of miles per hour and temperatures up to 3,000, or, they have to withstand potentially 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That's just how hot it gets when you're re-entering the atmosphere. That as they did that today, or on Friday rather, they plasma builds up around the spacecraft, and the plasma is just so present that it penetrates the communication signals, that literally just that buildup around the spacecraft makes it to where mission control can't communicate to them. So it's not like we just, we're in a blackout area. It's nothing like that. It's literally that there's plasma that builds up outside the spacecraft that makes it so you can't communicate with them.
And it's not NASA just turning off the feed to the public.
No, gosh,
they don't know what's going on either.
They're all sitting there. That was one of the questions that we kept asking these mission control people, is like, what were you thinking during those 6 minutes? What's running through your mind? And, lots of people watched this on Friday, but another fact about this is that the process from re-entering, the moment they re-enter the Earth's atmosphere to splashing down off the coast of San Diego was 13 minutes. And, traveling thousands of miles at 13 minutes. And this idea that NASA at that point, if something goes wrong, there's really not even time to solve it, that you can't act quick enough. And so really it is just so much prep beforehand to make sure that everything is okay. And then kind of just saying, we've done what we can. And I believe it was Jeff Radigan who said this during that reentry. It's up to the spacecraft if it makes it or not. That you just can't control it. You kind of just prepare ahead of time. Yeah, you just listen to the spacecraft.
Well, excellent job reporting. It was incredible to watch this history. And
Thank you.
Houston Public Media reporter Michael Adkison, thanks for joining us on Hello Houston.
Yeah, anytime.
Coming up, we're going to continue discussing today's top headlines. We'll also talk with Joe Panzarella about his run for Houston City Council. Stay with us for the second hour of Hello Houston.
You know how important trusted independent journalism is to our community? This is about ensuring that you always have access to the information you need. And right now, you can, here we go again, triple your investment. Right now, we are tripling, thanks to the help of Linda and Wesley Patterson. But this triple match is only available for a little less than 3 more minutes. So right now, make sure you go and make that donation. Do it at HoustonPublicMedia.org/donate. I'm saying it fast so they can do it. It's 888-909-0887.
And right now, you can do something simple that really matters. Through our partnership with Meals on Wheels, when you make your gift right now, you can select meals as your thank you gift. You're helping deliver hot food to homebound seniors across Houston. A real person right now is counting on that. And it starts with you, and it starts right now. So go make your gift right now at HoustonPublicMedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887. And thank you.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
I'm I'm Sharu Mukhtiar, President and CEO of I Am Houston. Today is Meals Day. Support the journalism you're listening to right now and help provide meals to seniors in our community. Give now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
We know you value Houston Public Media. That's why you're listening right now. Take the next steps and become a new member of the station you rely on. Every gift makes a difference, and what matters most right now is supporting the station that brings you the news and information you rely on. It only takes a few minutes to make a big difference. Join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Slight chance of thunderstorms today, the high of around 82. Tonight's low 71 with mostly cloudy skies. Tomorrow, the high of 82 with partly sunny skies. We have 80 degrees right now here at the University of Houston. This is your NPR station, KUHF Houston, News 88.7. It's a service of the University of Houston. It's 12 o'clock.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, the U.S. military has put a blockade on all ships entering or exiting Iranian ports after the U.S. and Iran failed to reach an agreement over the weekend. We'll discuss with University of Houston Energy Fellow Ed Hurst. I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman.
And I'm Ernie Manous. We'll also talk with Joe Panzarella, a candidate for Houston City Council District C seat, about the upcoming runoff election.
Plus, we'll also learn about the Houston area nonprofit, the Citizens Environmental Coalition, and the upcoming 2026 City Nature Challenge they're helping organize.
And we want to hear from you, so give us a call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us live on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, by Metro, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The U.S. military says it will start enforcing a naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz today. It's an effort to put additional pressure on Iran. NPR's Greg Myrie reports President Trump announced the blockade yesterday after U.S.-Iran peace talks over the weekend failed to produce a breakthrough.
The U.S. Navy has a substantial presence in the region, and President Trump says it won't take long for the U.S. to, quote, clean out the strait. Still, the blockade comes with risks. Iran is believed to have placed mines in the waterway. Also, Iran says that if any of its ports are attacked, it will respond by attacking ports belonging to Arab Gulf countries. Iran has effectively closed the waterway for the past several weeks, aside from a small number of friendly or neutral commercial ships it allows through. It's not clear if any of those ships will attempt to challenge the U.S. blockade. Greg Myrie, NPR News, Washington.
Pope Leo has arrived in Algeria on an 11-day tour in Africa. He will also travel to Equatorial Guinea, Angola, and Cameroon. This trip comes in the wake of a sharp public attack from President Trump amid tensions over the war in Iran. Here's NPR's Emmanuel Akunwotu.
Pope Leo is the first pope to arrive in Algeria, Africa's largest country. Catholics are a tiny minority among the largely Muslim population, but Algeria is the birthplace of the Order of St. Augustine, to which Pope Leo belongs. The trip, however, comes amid escalating tensions with the White House over the war in Iran, criticized by Pope Leo. And on Sunday night, President Trump attacked the Pope.
We don't like a pope that's going to say that it's okay to have a nuclear weapon. We don't want a pope that says crime is okay in our cities. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of Pope Leo.
And while still on an aircraft landing in Algeria, Pope Leo responded.
Too many people are suffering in the world today. Too many innocent people are being killed. And I think someone has to stand up and say there's a better way to do this.
Emmanuel Akinwotu, NPR News, Lagos.
Hungary's new Prime Minister-elect, Péter Magyar, is pledging a shift back toward democratic standards from the authoritarian rule of Viktor Orban, who was voted out of power Sunday by a landslide. Hungarian Americans, such as Anna Hajdu, spoke to NPR's Frank Langford about the outcome.
That's incredible. This gives hope to our generation that we can actually make change, and democracy is not dead.
Orban was closely allied with President Trump. Russia's Vladimir Putin and other rulers critics have characterized as hardline or authoritarian. At last check on Wall Street, the Dow is up 12 points at 47,928. This is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Tom Perumian. The Artemis II crew is back in Houston after their historic lunar mission. Each of the crew members shared a private reunion with their families on Saturday before speaking publicly. Here's Commander Reed Wiseman.
No one knows what the families went through, man. This was not easy. Being 200,000 plus miles away from home, like before you launch, it feels like it's the greatest dream on Earth. And when you're out there, you just want to get back to your families and your friends.
The crew will undergo ongoing medical evaluations and lunar science debriefs. Well, even though the Texas Attorney General's office directed Harris County Judge Lina Hidalgo's office to release documents about a recent trade mission to Japan and Taiwan, the vast majority of them were redacted. Public records, like Tom Leatherberry says, it's increasingly common to see wholesale redactions of public records.
That's the game that governmental bodies play, is they wear you down and they string it out and hope you'll just give up or hope that the information no longer has news value.
A spokesperson for Hidalgo's office said the delegation that went on the trade mission met with senior leadership at Foxconn and Inventec to discuss AI server manufacturing and reinforced Harris County's position as a top destination for investment in the United States. In sports, the Astros hope to break a 7-game losing streak when they play their final game in Seattle. First pitch is at 3:10 this afternoon. And your check of weather, mostly cloudy with a slight chance for afternoon thunderstorms. We'll see a high of 82 degrees, partly cloudy tonight, low of 71. Right now, overcast 80 degrees on the UH campus. For more news and information, go to our webpage, houstonpublicmedia.org. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Subaru. In partnership with the Arbor Day Foundation, Subaru and its retailers have distributed 165,000 trees since 2025. Subaru, more than a car company.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now your hosts for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous and Celeste Diaz-Sherman.
We are back with you for the second hour of Hello Houston. And in the first hour, we were talking about whether these data centers that are coming to town should get these coming to the state. They're very personal with me. Coming to the state and getting a $3.2 billion tax break. So on our YouTube channel, our YouTubers chimed in. The question was, should Texas allow a $3.2 billion tax break for data centers? And the responses are in. No, that's too much lost revenue, says 72% of you. Then coming in at 14%, it depends on future economic impact. Those that are not sure were also at 14%. And then my favorite part, yes, it'll boost the economy. 0% agreed with that. Interesting. And somebody else comments, that's why we need to vote.
That's right. And I think there is a lot at stake here, as we look at these communities and we look at the regulation and policy that, where does the accountability fall versus the trade-offs? And those are the questions that continue to come up around this. And I always worry that it's the community that gets hurt.
Yeah. Yep. And I think we like to think of ourselves as always being ahead in in the futures of what's going to matter. You think of Texas for oil and gas, and we've been the leader in it. The next wave may be this data center and data gathering and the AI generation, and maybe we should be at the forefront of that too. what's the trade-off? And as we were trying to determine, is it do we just have a good area for this to begin with? So whether the tax breaks exist or not, they will still come here for the land and the power and all of that. It's hard to tell. But you know what? We've got a full hour ahead of us. Coming up, we're going to be talking about one of the two candidates that made it to the runoff for Houston City Council District C seat. Today, we'll talk with Joe Panzarella. Tomorrow, we will have the other candidate on the program. But first, let's move into the headlines, Celeste.
The U.S. military has blocked ships from entering or exiting Iranian ports today after the U.S. and Iran failed to reach an agreement in direct talks over the weekend. President Trump said Sunday he instructed the U.S. Navy to seek an interdict every vessel in international waters that has paid to toll to Iran. No one who pays an illegal toll will have safe passages on the high seas, he added. The decision to block vessels entering and leaving Iranian ports came after the U.S. and Iran failed to reach an end to the war during the direct talks that took place in Pakistan over the weekend. Israel and Hezbollah continued to trade strikes on Monday as efforts were underway for Israeli and Lebanese officials to meet in Washington for ceasefire talks. Joining us now to break it all down is U of H Energy Fellow Ed Hers. Ed, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you, Celeste.
Ed, sorry. I was going to say, Ed, just to place this, so basically, if I understand it, we've put a blockade against a blockade.
Absolutely right. That's the strategy. The way this was working out, Iran was in a winning position economically. Iran was still getting its 1 to 1.5 million barrels a day of exports to the global market. But instead of the pre-war price of about $50 a barrel, they were getting now $120 a barrel. So a big win for Iran. And because they had blockaded the strait, they had taken offline their primary competitors in the Persian Gulf. So, strategically, it makes sense to inflict as much economic pain on Iran as possible, and cutting off their flow of capital is one way of doing it.
And, I am curious when we see the president saying, the U.S. Navy is told to interdict every vessel, what does that actually look like in practice? Are we talking inspections? Are we talking seizures or potential force?
Probably all three. I would expect that no commercial ship is going to want to run past a destroyer or a Navy ship that's trying to block it or asking to board it. But if they do, then the president sounds like he's given orders to attack those ships.
A week ago, it was the deadline, and Iran was going to be blown off the face of the earth if they didn't come and meet these requirements and open up the strait. It has been a week since that deadline. It's still not open. It has caused more trouble. We are now doing a blockade of it. When we negotiate these things, does anyone take what is coming out of the U.S. at face value anymore? Or are we in the general public being delivered a very certain line rhetoric that isn't really what's happening in the negotiating rooms?
Well, I think Trump's style is trumping over the substance of any negotiations here. He's dictating this, and this is not progressing. In fact, the entire attack, the attack on Maduro, the coming attack on Cuba. This is not what the United States normally operates as. This is not standard operating procedures.
So, but staying with that same question though. So do we, as the public, should we be paying attention? I hate to put it this way. Should we be paying attention to what the President of the United States is saying during these periods? Or should we assume it's rhetoric he's just saying in a pop culture-y kind of commercial way, and that work is happening that we know nothing about and negotiations are happening on a whole different level? Or is this really what is being said at the negotiating tables?
I think we have to pay attention to every word the president says. I don't think there is anything going on behind the curtain, if you will. We in a democracy thrive on and require openness, and we're not getting that. We don't know what's going on in the White House, and we don't know what's going on in the president's thought process.
Right. And even though we don't know what's going on, Ed, there is still global impacts that are happening. And so what is the latest on global oil supply?
Well, we know that the physical supply is getting really tight, especially for the Asian economies. The price of oil is up $8 to $10 a barrel today, and that's because the Iranian oil is finally coming off of the market. Diesel is over $7 a gallon now in California. It's well over $5 a gallon here in Texas. And it's high because Qatar has had its LNG facilities taken offline. And gasoline has gone up, crude oil has gone up. We're not going to have any lines in the US, but we are going to be competing against buyers in Tokyo, in Thailand, in those Asian economies that are not oil self-sufficient, and that's most of them. Everything has an impact. We're seeing inflation come across the board, the tariff war, the higher unemployment, the increased borrowing of the United States to fund a deficit that reached over $1 trillion in the first 5 months. It's all going to come home to roost here about the time of the midterms.
Do you think this could trigger involvement from other global powers like China or Russia?
Well, Russia's pretty well tied down with its ill-advised foray into Ukraine. I don't know that China really wants to confront the United States. If the Trump administration stops a Chinese tanker, that would be a tremendous escalation. And the U.S. military is clearly overextended at this period of time. Trump runs the risk of getting us involved in something a lot broader, and that's not something the United States can handle without a complete pivot. As he stated, what was it, a week and a half ago when he submitted his budget, spending all of this extra money now on the military is going to cut into the social spending, the welfare spending, the Medicare, Medicaid. No one in the United States really is paying attention to the fact that he's taking the money out of the programs that have been guaranteed to the citizens and funding his military forays. We've got a tremendous problem with democracy right now, and Congress has been on vacation for the last couple of weeks.
Taking into consideration everything that you've already said, both on the political messaging point of view, the negotiating point of view, the prices that Celeste was just asking you about, and the supply and demand, if you're running one of these energy companies right now, how do you plan for the future? Where are you gauging what you're doing, what you're expecting to do, how to prepare for it? Where are they?
I think, domestic energy companies, oil and gas companies can expect that the prices will be higher throughout this year. And so putting rigs back in the field to drill for more wells is a good approach. They're not going to get overextended. Wall Street is not giving them a lot of money. Again, apart from the last 8 to 10 weeks, the oil patch has been the worst performer of the S&P 500, the worst industrial sector. So it doesn't get love from Wall Street, and not going to get enough money from Wall Street either. LNG export facilities are primed to do well. The president did make the comment, send your tankers to Texas, we'll load them up in Houston. Well, that's not physically possible. We don't have an export facility here in Houston. The Loop, the Louisiana offshore oil platform, loads about 3 tankers a day. We're exporting all we can right now. And that's about 4.5 million barrels a day of the light sweet that comes out of the Permian Basin. We, in 2025, imported on average 6.2 million barrels a day. We also imported about 490,000 barrels a day from producers behind the blockade. We're having to buy that oil from someplace else. And, thankfully, our trading allies that are close to home, Canada and Mexico, can provide that extra oil that we need.
And I was going to ask, speaking of our allies, President Trump says ships that pay Iran won't have safe passage. Do you think, what message does this mean, and what does it send to U.S. allies?
I really don't know if that's just bluster or not. He has no way of knowing who's paid or who hasn't paid.
Right.
He made some flip comment last week that maybe the U.S. and Iran would, as a part of the peace agreement, charge a toll together on ships passing through the strait. That's just part of his nonsense that he floats from time to time.
Well, do you think there's still a diplomatic off-ramp here, or do you think we are now firmly in a military phase?
There has to be a diplomatic off-ramp. There will be. The question is, when will we take it?
Let me ask this question about ownership. When we talk about the straits, or the Strait of Hormuz, the question is, Iran says they're controlling it and they're allowing ships in and out and they're charging a fee and all of that. And then we put up a blockade further down to block it. Control of the waterways there, who actually has the right of passage at the strait?
It's an international waterway. It's supposed to be open and remain open to all vessels for all nations.
So then how do they exert this pressure?
Well, it's pretty easy to do if you've got enough weapons.
So it's just military strength is saying we're going to block this and there's no ownership of that waterway.
Right. I'm sure a maritime lawyer would correct me on this and watch your text and emails. But this is just tremendous piracy. Absolute 100%. If we went over and blocked the English Channel, the U.S. Navy could do that. That would really upset the UK and France and the EU. But we could effect a blockade, to what end? Right. It's an international waterway. So what Iran has done, and what the U.S. is now doubling down on, is we've interrupted global supply chains for oil, LNG, aluminum in particular. 20% of the global aluminum supply is offline. Pharmaceuticals to Africa and to other nations. Foodstuffs and trade goods going into the nations in the Persian Gulf. This is a huge economic hit for these nations. And here in the U.S., we're pretty removed from that.
Mm-hmm. Last question for me about all this. We keep hearing it's 20% of the oil and gas, 20% of the oil and gas going through the strait. The other 80% is coming from which areas? And is that enough if you lost that 20% that we could still function with a little reprogramming, a little tightening of the belts, and being able to move forward?
So approximately 10% is getting through, or half of the throughput. The Saudis have a pipe to the west. UAE has a pipe. We're really missing some of the Saudi production, almost all of Kuwait's, Qatar's, Bahrain's, roughly about 10 million barrels a day. That has, 15 years ago, the market was 10 million barrels a day smaller. We get along very well because globally we get more miles per gallon than we did. We have a lot of things we can work around with this. And so it's going to be an expensive period of time. It will certainly encourage conservation. It will encourage switching to EVs and maybe mass transit. It's not anything we can't manage. It's the Asian economies that are taking the hits because they run on diesel, they run on LNG, and we're going to need a full rerouting of the global supply chains for these products to make it work.
University of Houston Energy Fellow Ed Hurst, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Celeste.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk with a candidate for Houston City Council's District C seat, Joe Panzarella. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
Today is Meals Day. When you make your gift right now to Houston Public Media, you can select meals as your thank you gift. You won't only be supporting trusted news you get from our station, you're also putting meals on the tables of local homebound seniors. It's an amazing program and so wonderful we can be part of it. Now that doubles the good that you can do with just a single gift. And our goal this hour is for 20 of you, 20 listeners, to step up and start $10 per month donation. And that will provide in our area 200 meals. Start a monthly donation of just $10 a month and select meals as your thank you gift. Do it at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. Right Now Matters, because your gift today goes further. Support the news you trust and help feed a homebound senior in Houston. That only happens when you step up. Right now, we need 20 listeners to start a $10 a month gift. So that gets us to 200 meals. That is incredible. That puts a smile on our face. Choose meals when you give. Go to houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or pick up that phone. Give us a call, 888-909-0887.
And in addition to these $10 monthly donors, we also now more than ever need leadership donors to help us meet this moment. Our membership group also includes members who give $5,000 or more to Houston Public Media. If you can give at what we call the Affinity Council level, please give right now and ensure that Houston Public Media is here far into the future. When you make a gift of $5,000 right now, you can select 833 meals. That's an amazing impact, an amazing gift, and amazingly helps two wonderful organizations. Make that gift right now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
And you're listening to Houston Public Media, and your support has a real impact. It pays for reporters. It keeps programs on the air. It keeps trusted news available for Houston. Even a small gift matters. Every listener who gives helps make this possible. If this station is part of your day, please take a moment and give right now. It's not hard. Go to houstonpublicmedia.org or call 888-909-0887.
I want you to know where your donation is actually going. Have you ever stopped and thought about what it takes to keep Houston Public Media going? It is a lot. It takes people, journalists, producers, and engineers, real folks doing real work every day. And it takes programs, NPR programs, and local shows like Hello Houston. Right now, we ask that you support the work we do that you listen to. 888-909-0887.
We know you value Houston Public Media. That's why you're watching right now. So take the next step and become a new member of the station you rely on. Every gift makes a difference. And what matters most right now is supporting the station that brings you the news and information you rely on. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. So join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
From Castle Farms in Michigan at 7, then from Santa Fe, New Mexico at 8, Lucy Worsley Investigates is on at 9, tonight on TV8.
Why give to Houston Public Media? Because you're listening to Hello Houston right now, a show that gives you more than just headlines. It provides context, community, and connection.
You hear from experts, local leaders, and everyday people. You get the complete picture, and that only happens with your support.
This journalism is powered 100% by listeners. That means you make it possible.
If this show matters to you, take the next step. Give now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Support comes from Metro. World Cup planning includes transit improvements intended to serve Houston after the final match. Metro provides bus, rail, and paratransit service and continues mobility enhancements across the region. More at ridemetro.org/Metro now.
Support comes from Blake Hilligeist Real Estate, independent commercial and residential real estate broker with over 30 years experience guiding clients through economic downturns, realty challenges, and everyday life situations. More at BlakeSellsHouston.com.
Support comes from Rothko Chapel, presenting art class for families with Vasily Kandinsky as part of Neighborhood Community Day, April 18th. The event includes an interactive art session exploring color and composition through abstract work. RothkoChapel.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manous and Celeste Diaz-Sherman.
Today we're joined by Joe Panzarella. He is a candidate for Houston City Council District C seat. I stumble every time I say that. He is a community organizer and Fourth Ward resident, and he is running for the upcoming runoff election. Joe, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hey, good morning. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
If folks want to join the conversation, you can call 713-440-8870 or text us there.
You know, Joe, you made it into the runoff. And I'm curious, what did you learn from that first round? And is there anything that you're kind of changing now within your campaign?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. This is a campaign that has been people-powered, grassroots, volunteer-led, and we always wanted to meet Houstonians where they were. Throughout this campaign, we've knocked on over 15,000 doors, and I don't think we're going to change anything about that. Going into the runoff May 16th, we're going to be back at it, knocking on doors, meeting Houstonians where they are, and just having really good conversations.
You did really well, came in first in this field. I guess there were 7 of you in it. But now you have to worry about the other 6 candidate supporters that hadn't chosen you first off. What is the messaging to them that they may have missed the first go-round?
Yeah. Well, you know, I think what was really difficult about that first round is with 7 candidates, it's difficult to differentiate ourselves. But I believe our values were all aligned. And most voters would tell us that at the doors is that, wow, I mean, y'all all kind of agree on safer streets and protecting Houstonians and bringing down the cost of living. But I just don't know who is going to be able to accomplish that and which one has the best policy. So it's doubling down on safer streets, affordable housing, transparency at City Hall, and I think we're going to be able to bring a bunch of voters over.
So now that it's just down to the 2 of you, do you have any specific issues where you clearly differ from your opponent?
You know, this is what I've said since the general, which is our experience speaks for itself. As a grassroots community organizer, as a president of my super neighborhood, when I talk about safe streets, when I talk about affordable housing, it's because I fought for these things already before. And I just don't think our opponents can say that as well. So that's what we're going to talk about is our experience and how our policy is really going to make a difference.
And we are talking with Joe Panzarella, who is a candidate for Houston City Council seat, District C seat. When is the actual election?
So the runoff date will be May 16th, and early voting is going to be April 29th through May 12th.
And what's important about that is we constantly are voting in this area. It's a little voter fatigue out there. Yeah. We want to take your calls at 713-440-8870. Ruben from the 5th Ward is on the line. Ruben, what's your question or comment?
Hey, y'all. Thanks for letting me ask a question. My question to Mr. Panzarella is, you know, one of the 3 things you've talked about running for is transparent City Hall. You know, what does that look like if you get elected? And particularly, I think you'll be smack dab in the middle of budget season. So how do you plan to bring transparency to City Hall?
Yeah.
Ruben, thank you for your call.
Yeah, great question. And, you know, I want to give a shout out to 2 current sitting council members, Councilmember Castillo and Councilmember Salinas. Castillo is doing rotating town halls throughout his district. I think that's an amazing opportunity to bring voters to the table without kind of the fear of having to go to City Hall.
Right.
And then Councilmember Salinas is having her virtual office hours. And so I think providing opportunities to speak with your district office, to speak with your council member outside of City Hall is really important. And then also doing it in hours, you know, after 5 p.m. where people are actually available and can spend the time.
And we also have a call from Emmanuel from the Heights. Emmanuel, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question for Joe?
Hi, thank you so much for having me on and having the opportunity to ask this question. Mr. Panzarella, I know that Houston is growing really fast, and a lot of longtime District C residents are worried about being priced out or being able to afford homes for their kids, for their aging parents. What does it look like for us to have responsible development in the district?
Manuel, thank you for that.
Yeah, amazing question. And for us, our thought has always been, can we build the missing middle housing that we need so desperately in Houston? I think we've all seen a lot of the empty lots throughout the city. I live in 4th Ward. The 4th Ward TERS actually owns 27 empty lots that has already been set aside for affordable housing that we just haven't been able to develop just yet. So first, it's changing some of our form codes. It's reducing parking minimums. It's reducing setback requirements, bringing in single stair reform. That's going to make it easier and quicker to build in the city. But then it's also bringing in really trustworthy stakeholders like the TERS, like the Texas Land Bank, the Community Land Trust, and building that missing middle, that housing that we really need.
We are talking with Joe Panzarella, candidate for Houston City Council District C seat 713-440-8870. Keith from Montrose is on the line. Keith, what's on your mind?
Hey, y'all. This is Keith. My question is about sidewalks. So, we hear a lot, everyone in Houston knows that sidewalks are a problem, and we really need better sidewalks. How do you get it done? What's your plan?
Yeah, fantastic question. I love that question. I know one of the oddest things in Houston, the 4th largest city in the nation, is that we have sidewalks to nowhere, and I just don't know how that concept exists, right? I think it's two things. One, it's working with our TERSs again. They have a lot of those infrastructure dollars that we can really put to good use, especially when it comes to sidewalks. And I think focusing those infrastructure dollars around our most vulnerable locations like schools, parks, things where kids, grandparents are trying to get across and walk and be mobile. The other thing is public-private partnerships. So working with daycares, working with businesses to find, where can we come to an agreement and pool our resources to fix a lot of the sidewalks around, again, businesses, different hotspots that we'd like to see improvement on.
I've joked with a lot of people when I say, if you don't know what district you live in, you probably live in District C. Explain what District C area is for folks listening.
Yeah, District C is big. It's diverse. It's such an amazing place to be. You have Meyerland and Braeswood there in the south. You've got University Oaks and Montrose there. A little bit of Rice Military and Washington Avenue, the Heights, and then Oak Forest in the north.
And you mentioned diverse, and that really is a very diverse area in multiple facets. And before we get to that, I did have a follow-up in regards to the TERS. I know that the Montrose TERS 27, I believe, there was some real controversy around this in 2024. And I believe it was about the redevelopment that Mayor Whitmire was going to move forward with and the trees. A lot of people were very upset that the trees were going to be taken out. What is your response to that?
Yeah, that was a difficult process to go through. And as an organizer, I was there on the front lines, going to TERS meetings. And I remember when the public speakers would be 2-1, 3-1 in favor of the original plan that would put forward a nice 10-foot wide shared use path that would connect Montrose all the way to Buffalo Bayou. It was going to reimagine the neighborhood in my mind. I think what we saw there was a lack of transparency, and we saw the administration change the TERS board without really taking into consideration the community's voices. But I think more so listening to just kind of one subset. What we saw in the Heights, Castillo and Cayman were able to come together and have a community town hall for a different safety improvement in that neighborhood. It's something that I'd love to see happen in Montrose because there's a lot of projects coming down the pipeline, and it's important that we have everyone's voice heard there.
713-440-8870. Margot's on the line from Montrose. What's on your mind?
Hi, you've been a community organizer in the district for years before running, so I'm just wondering why city council and why now?
Oh, good question. Thank you for that one. Joe?
I love that question. Thank you so much. What I really like about city council, what I really like about this position that I'm running for is that it has the biggest impact on our built environment. And so when you talk about Houston that has so many amazing amenities and parks and museums and restaurants and all these things, we have a lot of great A and Bs, but really difficult to connect the dots between A and B. And so I'm running here because I want to bring safer streets to Houstonians. I want to make it easier, more accessible, and more comfortable to walk, to bike, to roll, and to drive. What we saw last year was that cars killed more Houstonians than homicides. And that's by design. Our streets are built in a way that encourages speeding, but it endangers all Houstonians. And so I'm really excited to be able to get to City Council and to update our built environment to make it safer and more accessible for everyone.
You know, everybody that runs for these offices has dreams of things they want to do. And I'll say, when I get there, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And then they get into office and it's a lot harder than you think to move anything. What's your secret sauce? What are you going to bring there that's going to make it possible to make these changes?
It's all about coalition building here. And if you look through our policy, none of it is saying that Joe Panzarella is going to come out and we're going to fix all these things ourselves. It's about, can we bring enough stakeholders to the table that have the right resources, that have the right domain, the right authority to actually get projects done? And so I talk a lot about TERSs. I talk a lot about the county. I talk a lot about our state representatives. I've proven as an organizer with No Higher, No Wider I-10, where we were able to work with city council members, super neighborhoods, Precinct 4, to be able to work with TxDOT and to kind of revise the plan that they have for I-10. We're hopefully going to do the same thing with District C.
And again, 713-440-8870. We are speaking with Joe Panzarella, a candidate for Houston City Council's District C seat. Let's go to Stephanie from East Houston. Stephanie, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hi, good afternoon. Joe, you have mentioned about some of your priorities being better infrastructure, and we continue to see how District C continues to face flooding risks, not only District C, but the entire city of Houston. How will you ensure that future flood mitigation investments are being done in a transparent, equitable way?
Stephanie, thank you for that call. Joe?
That's a really important question. And I actually had an opportunity to sit down with Councilmember Kamen recently, and we met in Meyerland, where some of the worst impacts of flooding have been there in that neighborhood. And we talked about how some Houstonians are on their second or third mortgage because they've had to rebuild their house time and time again. And that's tragic. And I lived through Harvey. I got to see my parents' house flood, unfortunately, and that was a really tragic event. What's really important here is, I'll go back to coalition building. We need to be aligning our city drainage projects with our county flood control projects. And I think that's where we're going to have the biggest impact. Again, it's pooling resources. And then when it comes to transparency, it's being available, being present, being at TERS meetings when we're bringing forward drainage project plans, and then being as present as possible on social media and also doing town halls if possible.
We've talked a lot on our show today, and we'll continue to talk about the new positioning of the city when it comes to ICE and police and how they should interact with each other. And City Council is pushing forward the idea that, no, don't wait those 30 minutes. The police need to move on. Your thoughts?
I completely agree with Councilmember Salinas's and Kamen's and Pollard's ordinance there. I would have voted yes on it if I was there already. What's unfortunate about that is we saw one of the items of the ordinance taken off because of the city attorney, but this is something that we saw in Austin and Dallas. And so I would love for Houston to be at the forefront of protecting our immigrant community. This is a city of immigrants, always has been, always will be. And it's really important that as the cultural iconic city that Houston is, that we are the one pushing forward here and really protecting our immigrant community.
And again, 713-440-8870. Let's go to Daniel from Cypress. Daniel, welcome to Hello Houston.
Well, thank you for taking my call. So I am calling in. I know I am in Cypress. I'm a little bit out of the district, but I lived with my wife in the district well until we had kids. Mm-hmm. And my question is regarding, I won't get into my specific knowledge of this subject, but there is a lot of politics that are involved in getting things done in Houston. And so my question kind of regards, how do you plan to navigate those specific politics? We all agree on the policies. We all agree that sidewalks, and there's certain public things we agree on, but how do we navigate the politics that exist in City Hall now so that we can actually get something done?
Daniel, thank you for that. Joe?
Yeah. I've said this time and time again on the campaign trail here. You're not just electing Joe Panzarella to Houston City Council District C, you're electing the community to go to City Council with me. And it's really important that we're able to pool our collective voice and to fight for the policies that we want to see together. No one city council member can accomplish a lot alone. But if you're able to bring in a lot of different organizations like the TERSs, like the county again, if you're able to lean on the voices of super neighborhoods and civic clubs, like I've done before with No Higher, No Wider I-10, that's where you can really push the needle. And so I'll say, one, it's bringing our voice all together, but two, it's always leaning on our values. And we're fighting for safer streets and for affordable housing. There's all kinds of different ways that you can accomplish that, and that's where you can be creative. And so the more voices you bring in, the more options you're going to have.
Okay, let's grab one more phone call. This is Alberto from the 5th Ward. Alberto, what's on your mind?
Hey, all. Thank you for your time, Joe. I've seen that you've emphasized data-driven governance, and I want to ask, how would you ensure that data collection doesn't overlook communities that are, for the most part, historically undercounted or underrepresented?
Joe, your response?
Can I get a clarification on the question? How are we going to make sure that, we're using
Alberto?
data, but...
Can we get a little clarification on what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, there's an emphasis. You're already emphasizing AI use and how that's being utilized, but also I think we're in an era where we have access to data that would, equate to more equitable outlooks on how to follow up with projects. And sometimes that information can be misunderstood and misrepresented. And so a lot of it's just kind of using that data for its best purposes for the community.
And I think making sure that underrepresented communities that can sometimes get overlooked through data is being represented fairly.
Yeah. No, it's a great question. I'll highlight a couple of different ways that the city's already using data, and then hopefully that will clarify some things a little bit. One is the high injury network. That's where we've mapped out, I think this was 2021, they mapped out where 10% of our streets were housing 60% of our most dangerous crashes. And those streets are still in the same form that they were when the study was done in 2021. So making sure that we're actually using that data and then redesigning those streets in a way that solves the problem. Another one is Councilmember Kamen was able to put together a gun safety dashboard, bringing together data from the health department, from HPD, from the city. And that was, really a monumental task to bring all that data together. But now the critical task is using the data and making sure that we're using it to save lives. To your point about making sure that we're not letting the data lead us away from inequity and something like that, it's continue to be present and to listen to voices inside and outside of District C. And the way we'll do that is by working with our fellow council members. I have a great relationship with Councilmember Castilla, with Alejandra Salinas, with Councilmember Thomas. I really look forward to working with them and making sure that all of our community's voices are heard.
And just a reminder, the Houston City Council District C runoff election is set for May 16th. Joe Panzarella is a candidate for Houston City Council's District C seat. Thank you so much for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And coming up, we're going to highlight the work of Citizens Environmental Coalition. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
It is that time again where we ask you to do something really important. There's a reason that this station feels consistent. It's the work behind it, paying attention to what's happening here, following the details, making sure the information holds up. And we respect that you rely on this work. But that consistency depends on listener support. So give now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or give us a call at 888-909-0887. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. Imagine not being able to leave your home. Think about that. And then depending on someone to bring you a meal. That's the reality for so many seniors in Houston. You can help right now. You can help that person that's at home waiting for someone to come by. Through our partnership with Meals on Wheels, you can select meals as your thank you gift. Do that right now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
If you're wondering what the key to Houston Public Media's financial independence is and our success in our first year without federal funding, it's your monthly donation. So right now we need, here's the challenge, 20 listeners. Did you get that, Celeste?
20. We can do this.
20, and just at $10 a month as a monthly donor. And then when we get those 20 listeners at $10 a month, not only are you helping Houston Public Media, you will be able to reach 200 meals this hour going out into the community of people in need. So it's great information and great nourishment. So don't wait. Make your monthly gift right now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
And again, you're listening to Houston Public Media. Maybe it feels familiar, like part of your day, like someone who gets you. That connection is why your gift matters, because the station is personal for you. Your support keeps it personal and strong. If you feel connected, give now at houstonpublicmedia.org.
You're listening to Hello Houston
Public Media
right now.
is committed. It's not just your car. It's the one that brought your kids home from school, took you cross country, held memories, laughter, even a few breakdowns. When it's time to let go, give your car a new purpose. Donate it and turn memories into meaningful support for this station. Plus, you'll enjoy free and easy pickup, potential tax benefits, and a simple donation process. Your gift supports the programs you and your family love. Donate today and help keep public media strong. Call or donate online.
Located off 290 and the 610 Loop and 249 and Beltway 8. Celebrating 25 years as the intersection of innovation. More information at nnmd.org.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from electricityplans.com, helping Houstonians find electricity plans based on home energy usage and rate comparisons. Enrollment details and more at electricityplans.com.
Support comes from the Houston Symphony presenting Adams Conducts Adams and Appalachian Spring. Composer and conductor John Adams features his own music and Copeland's Appalachian Spring this weekend at Jones Hall. Tickets at houstonsymphony.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manous and Celeste Diaz-Sherman.
The Citizens Environmental Coalition, also known as CEC, is a Houston area nonprofit that works to connect the city's environmental community through a range of programs, resources, and events, with the goal of fostering dialogue, education, and collaboration on environmental issues in the Houston Gulf Coast region. Later this month, the CEC will serve as the official city organizer for the upcoming 2026 City Nature Challenge. This is a global community science event that will bring residents across the Houston-Galveston region outdoors to document local wildlife and contribute to a worldwide effort to better understand urban biodiversity. That's exciting and interesting. To tell us more about the organization and the upcoming City Nature Challenge, we're joined by Amanda Kuhl, the president of the Citizens Environmental Coalition's Board of Directors. Amanda, welcome.
Thanks for having me on, Celeste. Thanks, Ernie.
Well, thank you for coming in. First of all, let's just start big picture. What gap do you think your organization fills in our community?
We are this umbrella organization that serves as the connector, the info hub for the environmental nonprofits in the Houston-Galveston region. We have about 100 member organizations and who are all actively working on their missions, on their causes. But we also need a point of connection. So we can sync up, share information, and that's what the role that CEC serves. We were founded in 1971 by the amazing Terry Hershey because she saw this vision of needing an organization, keep everyone connected in our very busy, active campaigns and activities.
Right, but Houston is often defined as, this very, industry, very urban sprawl, right? We're a big city, and I'm curious, what do people tend to misunderstand whenever we're moving into the city's environmental diversity?
I think that one of the wonderful things coming up with the City Nature Challenge is that we get to reconnect with nature. That, yes, most of us live in this giant urban city surrounded by freeways,
and
cars,
big, tall buildings.
But we forget sometimes nature's in our own backyard. And so that's what's really lovely about the City Nature Challenge coming up in about 2 weekends is that we can reconnect with that bird chirping outside, that frog chirping, or maybe it's the cicadas or whatever worm that just popped out of your garden as you're gardening, right? It all counts as wildlife in Houston, and it's much closer than we think. Of course, if you're going camping, maybe going out to go boating or fishing or something out in the lake or in Galveston, it's another opportunity, right? But it's actually, I think it surrounds us, even though we forget about it.
So if you're building your vision board of us 10 years from now, and you folks have been successful where you want to be successful, what does our community look like?
It would be healthier. It would be greener. It would be more resilient, Houston. What that would mean to me would be that we would have healthier air quality. We wouldn't have to worry about some of the soil contamination, the impacts on human health from it. It would mean that we have a better understanding of the microplastics and what are other things in our waterways, and again, how does that impact human health? It also means quality of life, like having more trees to reduce urban heat, but also beautify our neighborhoods. It's a combination of all of it that I think makes a city more enjoyable for all of us, but healthier too.
All of it obtainable?
If we want to.
Yeah.
I always think about how we are in Houston. We are in the U.S. We are, relatively speaking, a wealthy nation, a well-off city. It's really, do we want it?
Right. The other day I was in my backyard when you said, you can hear birds singing. I live in the Galleria area, and from my neighborhood, you can see buildings. And I was outside in the backyard, and I had just taken about 10 minutes, and I was watering a couple plants quickly, and I heard birds singing. And it just made me feel close in a real way to my city and that kind of green space. And I'm curious about the City Nature Challenge. If somebody wants to be a part of this, how can they get involved? And also, what exactly is it?
It is a really fun global challenge organized by globally by the Los Angeles County History Museum and also the National Academy of Sciences. And then CC is the local city organizers.
Got it.
And it's a competition. Really, cities from around the world get really excited about this. It is 4 days where we get to, as individuals, untrained scientists, like I have a business degree, I don't have any science degree, go out in our backyards, to our parks, to our gardens, and document wildlife around us and contribute to this global science event. And what's really fun is even the cities in Houston play along and compete. Dallas, Fort Worth, Metroplex, San Antonio, Austin, El Paso, Houston, Galveston are kind of the big areas, and of course some of the smaller cities as well. But beyond that, there's thousands of cities that really play along with this, and some people are very competitive.
Okay, so it's called a challenge. Who's going to win? And how do you win?
So,
because that's what I'm all about. I want us to win.
Oh, I'm with you. I'm competitive, and I'm a native Houstonian, so I'm really like, let's get this going on. So, like Houston, we can do this.
Yeah. Houston, we can do this.
So on the iNaturalist app, what they'll eventually quantify they're telling us May 13th is the number of observations, number of species, a number of people participating. So last year in 2025, in the Texas area, San Antonio came out top. Wow. Then it was Dallas. Then it was Houston. Then Austin followed and El Paso behind us. So we have some room for improvement, Houstonians. Let's at least top Dallas.
Yes. Houston, if we can send astronauts to space,
Yeah.
we can document birds. How do you know the species, though? How would I know what to document?
That's the lovely thing. We can either you need to download the iNaturalist app. You can use your phone.
What's the name of the app again?
Sorry, iNaturalist.
And spell it. Is it E
Sorry,
Y?
As in
I.
internet, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes.
iPhone, internet, and naturalist. NATURALIST. If I spelled it right, that was the hardest. That was a hard
question. I just
question,
didn't know how you
Ernie.
use I.
That was
EYE
the
is
hardest
just the
question
letter
you
I.
asked. That was incredible. Okay, one last time. How do you spell that? So if people want to get involved, where can they go, Amanda?
iNaturalist.
And you find the app. You
And
download it.
You download it.
and
It's
you're in.
free. I think you do a little free sign up. You probably want your name and email and stuff like that. And so you sign up. So it's super easy to do. They have YouTube videos. This challenge has been going on for many years, and so there's a lot of information out there. You can also go to our website cchouston.org. Sorry, I should mention that cchouston.org, and if you go under programs initiatives, the Houston City, the City Nature Challenge will be right up there. You can get more information.
Let's do this.
I'm signing up.
We're
Let's
gonna
do
sign
it.
up.
We're going to
We're
do
gonna
it right
join
after
you.
this.
Thank you.
Yes.
Two more participants adding to the total.
Amanda Kuhl is the president of the Citizens Environment Coalition's Board of Directors. Amanda, thank you so much for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you.
And the City Nature Challenge will take place from April 24th through the 27th. And that brings us to the end of our show. We want to thank you for joining us today, for listening and calling and engaging with us today on Hello Houston. We'll be back tomorrow with more conversations. We're going to be discussing the inaugural Houston Fleet Week, which will kick off later this week.
And the other candidate for District C will be with us tomorrow, Nick Hellier. So we'll have both sides.
That's right. This is News 88.7. Have a great day.
Today is Meals Day. Our goal for this hour, it's been going for a little bit now, is to reach 200 meals. That's 200 warm meals for seniors in the greater Houston community. Will you help us reach this goal? All you have to do right now is become a member, select $10 as a monthly gift at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887 and we can reach this goal. We've only got a couple minutes. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. And right now, you can do something simple that really matters. Ernie just asked, will you help us reach that goal? And I'm telling you how. You can support Houston Public Media and help feed someone who needs it through our partnership with Meals on Wheels. When you make your donation right now, choose Meals as your thank you gift. Start your monthly donation of $10 a month right now and help us reach our goal of 200 meals. I know we can do this. Make your gift now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or give me a call, 888-909-0887.
Your leadership gift today strengthens Houston's trusted news source for tomorrow. With a gift of $1,500 or more, you can join our Studio Society. You can do it in one lump sum, or you can split it up over 12 months. It's a group of supporters dedicated to safeguarding independent journalism and Houston-based programming each week. So when you make your gift of $1,500 right now, select Meals as your thank you gift, and that'll help us win our challenge. Step forward at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
And thanks.
Do it right now. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altai, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
I'm Shabru Mukhtiar, President and CEO of I Am Houston. Today is Meals Day. Support the journalism you're listening to right now and help provide meals to seniors in our community. Give now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Support comes from Rice University.